Welcome to VLGA Connect. My name is Catherine Arndt and I'm the Chief of the VLGA Connect studio. I hope you enjoy today's Connect episode brought to you by the VLGA, the national broadcaster on all things local government.
Well, hello and welcome back to VLGA Connect, and I'm delighted to be joined on the program today by the Chief Executive Officer of South Gippsland Shire Council, Kerryn Ellis. Kerryn, lovely to see you.
Thanks, Chris. Lovely to see you too, and thanks for the opportunity.
Well, I wanted to take one of our deeper dives on the program into a story that has made some news just of late, and that is, and it's good news, the release of the final report from the municipal monitor, Prue Digby, who was in place for some time at South Gippsland after the election. Of course, you went back to election, I think it was a year later than everyone else, because you'd been in a period of administration and the government decided to have some assistance there on board through that process. Firstly, from your perspective, how well did that process work?
It's a great question, Chris, because I suppose initially I had the view that this is a new council, a new election. They haven't failed yet, so why do we need a monitor?
Yeah.
And probably 12 months on, I actually see the role, or at least the potential role, of monitors a little differently, because we were very fortunate to have Prue Digby as our monitor, very, very experienced local government and broader governance professional. And the role that she played was far more a coaching and support role rather than an oversight role from the perspective of something having gone wrong. So I suppose my view is that I found it really helpful, and I know that it built the confidence of some of our councillors, even just to nominate and to be willing to be involved in what could have been a really challenging council. And it was good to see that confidence in local governance and local representation be supported.
So I guess what we've seen over the past few years, and particularly under Sean Lean when he was minister, was this proactive use of monitors to, I guess, avoid situations occurring. So we've had a council in administration, and I'm mindful there are two others still, Casey and Whittlesea. It seems to be a positive step towards saying, let's make sure we set these councils up for success as much as we possibly can. Do you see it that way?
Yes, very much so. And I think in terms of the work that's happening, that's being led by LGV, but happening in the sector around councillor conduct and how we might support and set higher standards of conduct, I think the concept of positive and supportive municipal monitors that play a coaching and advisory role is a really strong opportunity. And it certainly worked well in South Gippsland from the perspective of giving people the confidence to stand for council in the first place, and then also providing that independent view of how the councillors are tracking in their first year.
So when we dig into the report, and it's not a huge report, it's an easy read. There's a couple of themes coming through, one particularly around induction, which I'll ask you about in a second, but also what struck me, no recommendations for future governance of the Shire. That's got to be the perfect report card then, doesn't it?
That's certainly how I'm choosing to interpret it, Chris. Yes. Yeah, look, it's a pretty strong commendation, I think, for the councillor group and the efforts that they've made to set a new standard for South Gippsland and really be deliberate and conscious of how they want to interact with each other, with myself and the organisation, and also with the community, but also how they want to be judged on their term and their legacy, which is as much about respectful, positive, strong, collaborative relationships as it is about the, I suppose, the practical things they deliver. But it's also really gratifying, I think, to have such a positive reflection of the work that the organisation did to make the councillors welcome and to support them in their early days.
So the monitor makes the point that the use of an induction and a transition plan, particularly in your case, is going to be crucial for success. Can you unpack a little bit for us how you went about developing that plan, given it's obviously going to be crucial?
Yeah, look, it was something that, for understandable reasons, we invested a lot of time and effort into, and certainly the administrators that we had acting as our council that set the budget for that first year were really supportive and allocated quite a bit of funding. I think we had about $75,000 in our budget, which we didn't fully expend in the end. But the idea of that was that we would have access to external and independent advice where that was valuable, and also to facilitation and other support. But really, I suppose the main thing that I would reflect on in terms of the approach we took was really starting with the end in mind in terms of what you want to achieve. And we really wanted our new councillors to feel welcome and valued, and to feel that the organisation was keen to set them up for success and support them, particularly in that first sort of 3 to 6 month period, which, if you come at councillor induction from an empathetic perspective and think about how long it's taken me to learn everything I know about local government, and we're sort of trying to get them to understand that in a very short period of time, that really helped us design the program in a way where we were hopeful that information could be delivered as it was needed and then reinforced over time, rather than trying to get it all right in the first sort of 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
But the other really, really strong thing was we started with the commitment that it was going to be about relationships, values, ways of working and collaboration first, and technical detail second. And we invested a lot of time up front in enabling the councillors to get to know each other and understand their values, how they wanted to work, and the standards they wanted to set for their own conduct, to get to know me as obviously their one employee, but also their key conduit into the organisation. And then also to start to enable the councillors to get to know both the organisation, but also the community. And our councillor group's very committed to open community engagement, and they wanted to get into that early, and we made sure they had lots of good opportunities to start working closely with the community. So really it was about enabling the councillor group to have lots of opportunity to connect and talk about legacy and talk about how they wanted to be known in terms of their conduct, and then providing lots of opportunities for them to actually reflect and debrief on how they were going against those conduct standards. We probably did a bit of a sort of 70-30 balance, where 70% of it up front was culture, values, relationships, and we had 30% that was about content and technical. That stuff's really important, but I think the challenge, if you hit councillors with too much too soon, is it feels like we're telling them everything they can't do instead of talking to them and enabling the great role that councillors can play.
You've I think hit the nail on the head of a problem that exists across the sector, and I'm wondering how much of this was known to the candidates in terms of the work we're going to be doing about culture, values. It's not just about sitting around the table and making the decision that you think needs to be made. It's that challenge of educating the broader community, I think, about the role of the councillor, and you need successful candidates that are open to that. Do you see where I'm going? So how much
Absolutely.
in your situation was known by the pool of candidates that was the task ahead of them?
So you'd obviously be aware, Chris, that all candidates are now required to complete a program that's delivered through LGV. And I think that concept is really good, but I think it could be strengthened in terms of the content and the clarity around what the role of councillor is about, and the nature of actually working together, often always without a sort of a parliamentary discipline, and often without necessarily clear lines of alignment. That a lot of it is about relationships and building interest around particular policy areas through collaboration. And we certainly had feedback from some of the candidates that had nominated early or declared early, that they really didn't find that training fully hit the mark. So we developed our induction program quite early, and as candidates announced their nomination, we sent it out to them so they knew what to expect. We sent it out as a proposed. So the idea was that, we've had a go at developing something that both meets all the legislative needs, but also enables you to form as a high-functioning group. But the first thing we're going to do when you get elected is talk to you about the program and how it's going to work for you and whether or not it meets your needs. But we certainly made it clear in terms of the time commitment involved, which councillors still often, I often hear councillors still saying they underestimate how much time it actually takes, particularly in that first 6 months. And then we also made it really clear to them in terms of the themes that we were going to pursue, that it was as much about relationship building and talking about how you want to operate as it was getting into actually making decisions and delivering projects.
Yeah, so I guess in your case and in the case of Whittlesea and Casey, there's a bit of a burning platform to be able to do that. So my mind's going to, how can the rest of the sector, perhaps next election cycle, learn from and perhaps benefit from your experience here and the plan you've developed? Is it transferable?
Oh, I think large elements of it are, and I would certainly encourage other CEOs, as I'm sure they're already doing, because elections come around really fast, to sort of start thinking early about how programs can be designed to be available early so candidates know what they're getting into, but secondly, to make sure that there are all those elements in there and there's enough time up front for the relationship building side. You're absolutely right, I think, Chris, that where a council's been dismissed, there's a really heightened level of awareness in the community and amongst the candidates that, we need to do things differently. So it does make it a little easier in some ways. But I think for any council, of course, as CEO, you're only responsible for 50% of the relationship, but do the 50% that you can do as well as you can by being prepared early and by allowing enough time for the councillors when they're first elected to get to know each other and have some conversations early about how they want to be known and the values that they want to live and have recognised.
So there's one more piece of this that I want to just explore a little bit with you, and you might not want to go here. Prue says, the impact of the skills and capability of the Chief Executive Officer has on the quality of the interaction between councillors and the organisation cannot be underestimated. And she's been quite complimentary about your role in the leadership of South Gippsland that's contributed to its achievements and success to date, which really, so firstly, congratulations. No surprise to me, and I'm sure to many who know you in the sector, but it really underscores the importance, doesn't it, of having a CEO with those skills and capabilities to lead through a time, well, ordinarily, but let alone a time like this.
Yeah, look, it was really flattering to have those comments in the report, and I really appreciated Prue's feedback. And I've got to say that I've had the fortune throughout my career to work with some fantastic CEOs. So I've had great role models, and I suppose I'm just practicing what I've learnt from others. But the thing that I think is really key is a couple of things. One is that you're right, it does take, I think, a certain amount of sort of skill and capability at CEO level, and hopefully supported by a really great team and good directors. And that, I think, lends all the more weight to making sure that the CEO role is one that's actually, safe and valued, and that it is seen as a role that's important to attract and retain talented people in right across the sector. And there's a whole sort of separate conversation there about some of the challenges, I think, with retaining good CEOs in local government. But the other part that I would say, I went into the relationship with my new councillors, and I didn't know who they were going to be, of course, with an open mind and I suppose an open heart, believing in good intent and starting from an open perspective that if we work together, we can make this work. And I was really open with them right from the start that I won't always get everything right either. And if I'm expecting the councillors to continue to reflect on, their performance, I should be doing the same thing. And to an extent, we should be doing that together. So I think it's really important that CEOs are confident and capable of providing clear and firm advice where that's really needed. But it's equally important, I think, that CEOs are open to conversations about how things are working and how maybe things could be done differently to respond to the needs of the unique 9 individuals that you've had elected. And in our case, that has established a really strong relationship of trust and mutual respect with the councillor group.
That's terrific. So well done to everyone. Prue says it would be of value to the sector if the South Gippsland Induction Transition Program was shared with the sector along with the learnings. Has there been some movement on getting that to happen as yet?
Yes, we've certainly had a number of requests, and in particular, as you flagged before, Chris, with Whittlesea and Casey, who are, what are they now, less than 2 years
Yes.
from going through a similar process. We're certainly in conversation with them about what we can share, but we're very happy to share our transition plan in the hope that it might help others. And likewise, I should say we benefited very much from a number of other councils being willing to share their transition program with us. One of the great things about being a year after everyone else was everyone else had gone through it 12 months before, and we had the opportunity to learn from others. And I think that's one of the great things about the sector. So if we can help anybody else, we're really happy to do so.
And dare I say, it might also be of assistance in improving the mandatory training program that candidates are required to go through across the state.
Yes, it could be, Chris. That's correct.
Provocative thought. Perhaps we'll leave it there. Kerryn, it's been great to catch up with you. Congratulations again I know it's a team effort to you and all your team and the mayor and the councillors there at South Gippsland for getting back on track in such a positive way, and all the very best for the future.
Thanks so much, Chris, and thanks for the opportunity.
We've been speaking with Kerryn Ellis, the CEO at South Gippsland Shire Council today on VLGA Connect. Stay subscribed for more coming at you very soon. Bye for now.